Hi guys, it's me, Jay, here for Full Time Devils. Just before we all get into that, just to let you know that Adam will be back soon. I know everyone will be commenting, where's Adam? Don't worry, he's on his holidays. You're going to have Adam McCullough, so you're going to have Stephen Howson for the rest of the week doing updates in the morning, and then you're going to have Adam McCullough back the following week, so don't panic. So obviously the big news today is Paul Pogba. In case anyone doesn't know, the Pogba's come out this morning speaking in Tokyo to reporters, and he's basically said that he wants a new challenge. He wants to leave Manchester United Football Club. Now, in the past, Pogba's made comments and he said things that have maybe been misconstrued or that perhaps he's been backed into a corner, he's been put on the spot where he's said nice things about someone and that's been taken as meaning something else. But here he's been pretty sort of unequivocal. I mean, he's pretty sort of straightforward here that he wants to leave Manchester United. I'm going to read the full comments that he's made. You can see part of it on the screen, so we know what he said. But he's basically said, for me, I've been for 3 years in Manchester and I've been doing great, some good moments, some bad moments, like everybody, like everyone else. After this season and everything that happened this season, with my season being my best season as well, I think for me it could be a good time to have a new challenge somewhere else. I'm thinking of this to have a new challenge somewhere else. So that's pretty cut and dried. He wants to go. There's no sort of debate about that, or does he mean it, or is a reporter misquoting him? He's on video saying it. You can see the video. It's all online. We've retweeted it. You can check it out on the FullTimeDEVILS Twitter. So it's pretty obvious that Paul Pogba does want to leave Manchester United. Now, the big question is, can we sell him? Can we sell him for the amount of money that we want for him? Because we were talking about this last week on a transfer update, and the rumours were that if Paul Pogba was to leave, Manchester United wanted around £150 million for him. Now that to me sounded quite accurate, because the thing with Pogba is not only is he an outstanding footballer, regardless of how inconsistent you may feel he is or whether he does it enough, he is one of the top midfielders in the world. So you're going to miss him, you're going to have to replace him, you're going to have to spend money to replace him. But also, in terms of the marquee value, in terms of, from a marketing point of view, we all know that Manchester United love the marketing. He is the star. He is the one that sells the most shirts. He's the most recognisable Manchester United player. He's the big star name. So United are going to want to replace him, and they're going to want to spend money. They're going to have to spend money to replace him, But also, United are going to want to get big money in for him, because the value he brings to the club is almost immeasurable. Now, we've seen in the past players like, I mentioned this last week, Felipe Coutinho went for 145 million, I think it was. Someone like Paul Pogba, you'd be expecting to fetch around that figure, if not more. So the club are obviously going to be looking for around 150 million for Paul Pogba. Now, he does still have a couple of years left on his contract, so it's not a case of, you know, if we don't sell him this summer, that's it. Next summer he can go for free. So there is a little bit of leverage there from the club in the fact that he does have 2 years left, I think it is, because he signed a 5-year deal when he came 3 years ago. Now, Paul Pogba's probably the player that's been debated about more than any other Manchester United player I can remember. His sort of supporters, his fans point to his stats. I mean, his stats this season have been pretty impressive. I think he's had 13 goals and 9 assists. I think he's been our top scorer. But then people who criticise him will say, well, 7 of them were penalties or whatever it is. On the whole, I think Paul Pogba has performed well for Manchester United. I think the issue is probably not seeing it enough. And I think also you would argue that he hasn't had the quality around him as well. That's been a big issue for Paul Pogba's supporters. They say, well, look at who he's playing alongside. The reason that he's perhaps not in a title challenging side isn't because of him, it's because of who he's playing alongside. And what worries me a little bit here is if Paul Pogba goes out, are we going to replace him properly? Are we going to bring in the player that can keep United moving forward, start United moving forward, I should say, rather than keep United moving forward? Because there's a big worry that if Paul Pogba goes, we won't bring in a midfielder who's as good as Paul Pogba. We won't even bring in someone who's nearly as good. That's what worries me, is that it's difficult to find the top class midfielders at the moment, and United are going to have to move quickly if they do sell him, to make sure we bring someone in. There's been talk of Bruno Fernandes. He's a player that United have been linked with, and the latest news on him is that Atletico Madrid have made a bid. I think it was the Mirror who reported this today, that Atletico Madrid have come in with a bid of around 44 million for Bruno Fernandes from Sporting, which I don't don't think he's going to make Sporting sell him. The figures being quoted for him when United and City, for that matter, were interested in him was around 90 million, I think, 80, 90 million. So 44 million does seem a little bit low. That may well be an opening offer from Atletico. That may well be to see if the player fancies going there, to see what sort of Sporting's resolve is like, and whether Manchester United and whether Manchester City and other clubs are interested in him. He's a player that could come in and fill the Paul Pogba-shaped hole. He scored, I think, 24 goals last season, or 20 goals, I think it was, in the Portuguese top flight from a midfielder. For a midfielder, that's great. He's only 24, so you would think he can improve. And he sort of fits into that role. He's a midfielder who's an attacking midfielder as well. So he's someone that's been linked with United and who may well end up coming to Old Trafford should Paul Pogba leave. I think he's the sort of player that the club would look at if Paul Pogba left. I don't know if they bring him in alongside Paul Pogba, and at the moment it doesn't look like Paul Pogba's going to be here much longer, unless of course the club sort of dig their heels in and say, you've got 2 years left on your contract, you're not going anywhere. Another rumour doing the rounds this weekend that sort of came up a little bit, not from nowhere, but wasn't one of the main stories we were hearing until recently, was Youri Tielemans. Now, he's been linked with a move to Manchester United. He was at Leicester from January of last season onwards. He was at Leicester, had a loan spell with Monaco, did really well. Now Manchester United are supposedly meant to be interested in him and bringing him to Old Trafford. Really good young player, bit of a box-to-box type player. We'll love to see him at Old Trafford. That is a deal that looks like it could be done as well. You think of certain players and whether we can get them. There's no reason why you couldn't expect a player, no disrespect, that was playing at Leicester City last season to come to Old Trafford, because we know he had his issues at Monaco. Monaco was a club that was doing really well, I think, when he joined them, and then they've had countless problems. He didn't really shine there. Went to Leicester, did really well. Now he's being linked with a move to Old Trafford. He could be someone that comes in. He could have been someone that came in alongside Paul Pogba, because I don't think he's as similar as Paul Pogba as others that have been mentioned. But now it looks like if he does come in, he'll be one of the replacements. So he's a name to look out for. He's one that came up over the weekend, and there's some reputable journalists who are linking him with a move to Old Trafford. Now we've got the Paul Pogba story breaking that he wants to leave. So that all sort of fits in as well, that perhaps Tielemans is the player that's going to be brought in if Paul Pogba, get my words out, should leave. Another player that's been linked with Old Trafford as well, a midfielder, is Adrien Rabiot. Apparently, Juventus are in for him as well, because he's available on a free from PSG. He's another player that a few United fans have been mentioning. You've been mentioning him here on your comments in the past as well. Good young player. Would love to see him at Old Trafford. Free, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, his wages wouldn't be free, but he's a player that could come in. I don't know if he's not really the same type of player as Paul Pogba, but he could come in and do a job in that midfield. It's whether we can tempt him. The big issue, of course, with Paul Pogba and whether he moves on or not is who's going to come in for him. United 150 million, reportedly. Who can afford that? The two clubs that have been linked with Paul Pogba are Juventus and Real Madrid. Both clubs sort of doing a little bit of rebuilding, a little bit of transitional period. We know that Juventus have just got Sarri's just come in, and we know that Real Madrid, Zidane came in last season. They've had a lot of issues. They've gone in big this summer, spent a lot of money because they need to get challenging again, because Barcelona have been sort of walking La Liga. Real Madrid haven't been in the mix there at all. In the past, in previous seasons, it's the Champions League that sort of made them have a great season. That didn't obviously happen last season, so they're desperate to rebuild, to get back to the very top where we're used to seeing Real Madrid. So I wouldn't be surprised if they came in for Paul Pogba. The question is, can they afford him? Can either Juventus or Real Madrid afford the sort of money that Manchester United are asking, which again is what we believe to be in the sort of the £150 million mark. So my worry here is this could drag on and on and on a little bit. We know that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said that he wanted transfers to be done, his transfer business to be done by the 1st of July. Now, if Paul Pogba wants to leave, Manchester United want big money for him. If the clubs that are coming in for him aren't quite matching Manchester United's valuation, then there's a danger that it could drag on and on and on, and we could end up sort of being in a position where we don't have the time, when he does leave, to get in the players that we need to get in. Do you remember the shambles that we had when Sir Alex left in that transfer window, where we left everything to last minute and we were sort of trying to buy Fabio Contral, trying to get Sami Khedira and all the rest of it. There were imposters turning up to try and do a deal for Ander Herrera that weren't even anything to do with Manchester United, and we ended up buying Marouane Fellaini for more than his get-out clause, because we left it past his get-out clause. It was a bit of a shambles. So I can understand why Ollie looks at that and says, right, I want to get business done early. But this throws a little bit of a spanner into the mix, if you will, the spanner into the works, because if this was to drag out, Ollie may be in a position where he needs the money from Paul Pogba, or he wants the money from Paul Pogba to buy the big midfielder that he needs, and that's not what we want to see. I'd like to see Manchester United go out and spend the money that's needed, regardless of what happens with Paul Pogba. We were told that the club were going to go out and spend around £200 million this summer, which made a lot of sense. So why not do that? Why not do that? And then towards the end of the summer, if you've still not got rid of Paul Pogba, then you can address that. I don't think we should be relying on Paul Pogba's fee to bring in players. That's what really worries me. We want it done early, we want it done straight away. One player that's been linked with United quite a lot recently is Aaron Wan-Bissaka. The latest on him was that United obviously bid 40 million, that was rejected after Crystal Palace reportedly said they wanted around the £60 million mark. What we're hearing now is that United are going to go back in. There's talk that perhaps a deal can be done because United have a sell-on clause with Wilfried Zaha, so maybe they can forgo that to get Palace to come down on their estimations of Aaron Wan-Bissaka a little bit. Remains to be seen what happens with that one, whether the Zaha sell-on clause has anything to do with it. All I know is that we desperately do need a new right-back, because we all know what we've had problems there in the past. Ashley Young's obviously had his issues, won't get into all that. We know that perhaps Diogo Dalot, I'll get his name right this time, Diogo Dalot perhaps isn't quite ready yet. So it makes sense that we bring in a right-back. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, highly rated, young, played in the Premier League. He's played the back end of a couple of seasons ago. You remember he's practically man of the match against Manchester United, and he had a great season last season. We played a lot of games and was one of the best right backs in the league. Defensively, he was the best right back in the league. I think it was only going forward that Trent Alexander-Arnold had better stats than him. Just looking at the comments here, someone said try Ashley Young in midfield. Don't think that's going to happen. Someone said buy Zaha. Don't see it. Can't see it happening. I think Zaha, I felt sorry for him when he came to Old Trafford because I felt it was the wrong time for him to come. Sir Alex Ferguson, I think, bought him. He was the last signing from Sir Alex. David Moyes obviously didn't rate him, and he was sort of stuck in the middle, in no man's land. He was between sort of two managers, one who wanted him, who'd left, and one who didn't want him, who was the new manager. And he never really got a chance. I think he played about 60 minutes in the League Cup. I remember he played quite well, but you never felt it was right for him. And I think it was probably a little bit too soon. He's obviously gone to Palace. He's done well. Will he come back to Old Trafford? I'm not so sure that one's going to happen. I know he went to Cardiff as well, so I don't know if Ollie is fond of him, because I know Ollie's time at Cardiff wasn't the greatest. People ask about Lukaku. Again, that was spoken about over the weekend. It looks as though Lukaku is going to be heading to Inter. We know Conte's a fan. Lukaku's made comments hinting that he's on his way out as well. The fee being touted there is around the £62 million mark. So we'll wait and see what happens with that. But it does look as though Romelu Lukaku is going to be leaving. The big question, of course, today, if you just joined us, is will Paul Pogba be joining us? It looks like he wants to go. We know he wants to go, but will it happen? Someone else has put by Ndombele. A big player who could come into United. A lot of people have been speaking about him as well. Highly talented. Can it happen? We'll wait and see on that one. I don't think anyone would be complaining if it did. Someone else is saying, stop promoting Pogba now. Don't buy any of his merchandise. I don't really think that's going to have any effect, to be honest with you. It's a bit of a weird one with Paul Pogba, because you can look at it. I think he's played 95 games in the Premier League for Manchester United, 24 goals, 23 assists. You look at that and you think that's a good return for a midfielder who as well wasn't a goal-scoring midfielder when he came to Old Trafford. But to me, he's flattered to deceive a little bit, and it does leave a bit of a sour taste in the mouth that he'll be leaving when we've not got Champions League football. I think had United got into the Champions League this season, you could argue that Paul Pogba had more or less done his job. You could say he delivered Champions League football every season. He'd been here. He'd won us some trophies, won 2 trophies obviously in his first season. And you could maybe forgive him if he wanted to leave, if he did want to leave if we had Champions League football. Now though, with us finishing 6th, it does feel a bit like when he says, oh, you know, I've got new challenges now, you think this is a challenge, and I'd like to have seen him stay, to be honest with you. I'd like to have seen him say, right, you know what, let's get this club back to where it belongs. And I'd also like to see the club convince him to stay. I'd like to see the club say, listen, we're going to build this team around you. You know, you're not happy here. We're going to bring in some players. Here's our targets. We're going to make you a focal point of this team. Let's do this. Let's get United back to where they were when you left in 2012, the first time round or whatever. But that's obviously not happened. He wants to go, and I think now if the club can't convince him to stay, and he does want to go, then I think you do need to move him forward. Someone else here is saying, play the youth. Listen, I think the young players will get a chance next season. We've got Europa League football, so they're obviously going to get a chance there. I think there's certain players, the likes of Mason Greenwood, likes of Gomez, likes of maybe Garner as well, and Chong, who are in and around the first team, who aren't that far off from being given a chance. I don't think they're ready, though, to be playing week in, week out. I don't think they're ready to be playing lots of Premier League football. I think they probably get used sparingly in the Europa League and maybe the League Cup. People have been sort of pointing at this for a few months now, saying, oh, you know, remember in the mid-90s when Fergie had the Class of 92 and he just gave them all the chance. Those players, though, had been sort of in and around the first team 2-3 seasons before they were thrown in, if you will. They'd played in the Cups, they'd played in Europe now and again, they'd been the understudy, like Gary Neville had been the understudy to Paul Parker, Scholesy and Nicky Butt had come in and out for the likes of Brian McClare and when Roy Keane or Paul Ince was injured. So they weren't just thrown in, and then it got to the point where after they played sort of 20 or 30 games, then they were given a chance in that season where obviously they went on to win the double. Someone like, say, James Garner, for example, he's hardly played any first-team football, so I don't think you can throw him in straight into midfield and expect him to play 20 or 30 games next season. I think 2 seasons from now, we'll see someone like him, similar to Mason Greenwood. You know, he's had 1 Premier League start. I think Mason Greenwood is a real talent, and I think he'll get a chance next season. I just don't expect him to play anything more than sort of 15, 20 games tops, to be honest with you. I think next season will be a season for getting him ready, and then again, the season after, we could see some big things for him. I'm just going to wrap this up now, just going through some of the comments. Would you be happy with our window if we only signed James and Wan-Bissaka? Not really, no. Not at all. I think we need to buy more than just a young winger who's up and coming and who's not really proven at this level and who probably will be in and around the first team rather than a starter. Yes, we need a right back, but we need a midfielder. We need a centre back as well. We've been linked with Harry Maguire. Don't know what's happening on that front at the moment. It's all gone a little bit quiet. But we definitely need at least, for me, as well as James, who we've already got in, we need at least 3 more players. I don't think Wan-Bissaka will be enough. Someone saying Issa Diop, I can't get my names right. Yeah, this sort of broke over the weekend that United could be in for the West Ham defender. It remains to be seen whether that one's going to happen. He was, funnily enough, a player that Jose Mourinho praised. If you remember when United got beat by West Ham earlier on in the season down in London, and Jose Mourinho pointed him out and said, why aren't our scouts getting players like this? Well done to West Ham scouts, they've scouted him. Why aren't we doing it? Well, now we are. Now we're going in for him. Obviously, we've not scouted him. We've seen him from here, from West Ham. Let's see if that's a deal that can happen. Came a little bit from left field. No one was talking about that this weekend, and then all of a sudden, he was mentioned as someone who could come into Manchester United. So, whether that's a move that's going to happen, I don't know. There's so many names being bandied about in a minute. 1 minute it's Maguire, the next minute it's Diop, then someone else will be thrown in. The next minute it's Tielemans, he's the midfielder, then it's Fernandes, then it's Felix. There's all these names being thrown about, and you wonder how many of them are actually real, because despite what we may all want and think, United aren't going to go out and buy 9 players in this transfer window, and we've probably been linked with about 9, if not more. So we're going to bring in probably 3 or 4 more players. I'm hoping it's 4. Not the sort of the 9 or 10 that have been linked with, probably more than 9 or 10 that have been linked with us. So you just have to take some of it with a pinch of salt. Right, I'm going to wrap it up now. Listen, imagine someone just finally saying, imagine Son at United. Great, yeah, imagine Son and Martial would be great. I don't see it happening. Listen, guys, thanks for tuning in. You're going to have Stephen Howson on in the morning. He's going to be giving you your update there. The big news, obviously, if you just join us, Paul Pogba has come out with a statement saying he's looking for a new challenge. The big question is now, can Manchester United get the money for him that they want, and can we bring in someone to replace him? And will he even go? Will he end up going, or will United dig the heels in? As always, don't forget to subscribe. We'll have daily updates as and when they come. Don't forget to check us out as well on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all the rest of it. Thanks for watching.